football.
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. The Memphis Grizzlies trading away Mike Conley to the Utah Jazz. Chris Middleton declining his $13 million player option. Smart. And who is the best athlete from the state of Montana on earth right now today? Thank you, Colter, bringing me my water. Look at how great you are. Hey, welcome to the big show, boys and girls. It is Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio and SWX Montana Television. Outstanding to be with you here on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you are having a fantastic day. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us also on that very same internet. What a deal that is, huh? 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream. The stream is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week through the station website there. It is brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. You want to pick up your phone and call us? We will welcome your calls today, 329-1899, area code 406-329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangage Brothers RV phone line. We're going to get into some NBA stuff here. A pretty significant trade in the NBA, not a blockbuster, but a significant trade in the NBA today, so we will get into that. Chris Middleton also going to become an unrestricted free agent as he declines a $13 million player option. We will try, at least, to give away some wings today. It is a Wing It Wednesday, Desperado Sports Tavern. We got some trivia for you, so we will get you set up on all of that kind of stuff as well. We're going to ask this question, which I think is a good question to ask. Who in the world is the best athlete in the state of Montana? Who is it? It's up on Twitter, at Gus Tutel. You can check that out. You want to respond, give us your input there. You can join the conversation that way if you would like to. We will certainly bring all the responses that we can give to you. Now, and I want to be clear on this, okay? We're not talking about the best athlete from the state of Montana ever. We're talking about today, as we're walking around, who is currently the best athlete. So that's what we're looking for on that. So there you go. Plenty of stuff to do today and get into. Colter, what's up, man? Yellow, huh? A little pastel yellow. Look at how good you look, huh? Over there with a button up.
Hey, we just got to continue to differentiate ourselves as they continue to pair us together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going to, go ahead and probably jump into the pastels. So you're safe over there.
Good. Yeah. You take care of the plats. I'll take care of the pastels.
Got the deep reds. We got all of that.
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you living? How's your allergies? How's your?
It always happens because everything I think is fine, and then about 3:54, I'm holding my head under a sink, trying to rinse my eyes out. So I'm very blinky today. If you're checking us out on SWX Montana or on the YouTube, you can don't adjust your headset. It really it's watery. It's probably red. It's the way it goes.
How are
you doing?
I've been feeling great.
Yeah.
Got a little new supplement to the routine.
What is it? Is it a pill form or is it a
No.
Is it a food?
Went to Sweat Cycle this morning down at the sweatshop downtown Missoula. I've always been a mid-morning workout guy, not an early morning workout guy. So the 5:20 wake-up call and the 5:45 arrival time, a little early. But
you got up at 5-something a.m. to go work out.
I did.
No.
Oh, yeah. At the Sweat Cycle at 5:45 because you got to be there 15 minutes early, get the seat adjusted.
On.
And honestly, it was very trying and difficult for the first little bit. But then as soon as you're in it, though, it's great. And I felt so fresh and happy all day. I mean, the amount you can sweat, the amount of cycling is so interesting. And this is a very new age type of cycling too. It's great music, very exuberant, very energy based.
Is it EDM, country?
It's kind of like
rock. What are we doing?
It's kind of like very beat based pop. Stuff that we would play on the U. Actually, it's so funny. You know that song, "The Middle."
Yeah, of course. It's Zoe's favorite song.
I think of your daughter like so fondly every time I hear that song. It's I have such a crazy emotional connection to it because she loves that song so much. And when I hear it, I think of her dancing and singing, and it makes me so happy. That was the first song of the Sweat Cycle. I said, okay, this is going to be all right. But honestly, for anybody that hasn't tried cycling, first of all, you should go check out Sweat Cycle. It's really cool. It's really fun. Really good way to get your day started. They have classes all throughout the day, though, too. You don't have to go early in the morning. You can go in midday. You can go in the evenings. It's a cool place. It's definitely good. But getting the class started off with a nostalgic, sort of emotionally connected song is good. I've been feeling great all day.
Well, I mean, you've been in a good mood. I didn't know it was related to the Sweat Cycle. I've done a spin class, a couple of them before. I don't know that I was in as good a mood.
Well,
but
maybe you should give it another try.
It's been a while.
Yep.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Go into the Sweat Cycle and do the thing. Sounds good to me. All right.
Regardless, Sweat Cycle, corner of Broadway and Higgins. Go check them out.
Okay. Coulter, the Memphis Grizzlies, made a trade today. They sent Mike Conley. Well, they agreed in principle on a trade today, which will be accomplished. Is it this? When can they start doing this? Can this be official right now? Can they do it right
now? I believe it's official. Yeah, I mean trades. The free agency doesn't open up until July 1, but trades are trades.
Okay. Mike Conley is headed to the Utah Jazz from the Memphis Grizzlies. In return, Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, Jay Crowder, and the 23rd overall pick in Thursday's draft. I love this trade for the Utah Jazz.
Totally. I think it's a complete heist by the Jazz because I think that Grayson Allen's he's an okay prospect. I think Grayson Allen will be a fine NBA player. He's not going to be a franchise-changing NBA player. I don't think he's even an all-star potential guy. I think he'll be solid, good player. And I think that Kyle Korver is obviously on the last legs of his career. I also think that likely, a lot of guys are reporting this. A lot of reporters in the NBA, both men and women, are reporting this right now that Memphis is likely going to cut Kyle Korver and that he's going to end up with the Los Angeles Lakers. Mm. And like I told you
link up with LeBron.
Like I told you earlier, we were out and somebody told us, everybody likes to talk sports with us, and one of the guys that came up to us and talked to us, he said, my Utah Jazz trade for Mike Conley. And I said, well, who'd they get? I said, who'd they give up? He said, Grayson Allen, Kyle Korver, and Jay Crowder. And I said, Jay Crowder's such an interesting guy because I always talk about Jimmy Butler being the litmus test for superstar players and max players in the NBA. Jay Crowder's like the litmus test for like
a starter,
good player. Like if you're better than Jay Crowder, you're good, and if you're not as good as Jay Crowder, you're not that good. Jay Crowder is just like almost good. If he could just shoot it a little better, if he was a little less hot-headed or a little bit more tough to go with his hot-headedness, he's such an interesting player. And I guess Jay Crowder was fit-wise not great for this current Utah Jazz team. This current Utah Jazz team has a lot of international flair. They have a lot of wide-open identity, and they have a lot of fun. Jay Crowder is more of kind of like an enforcer type guy. I actually think Jay Crowder fits really well in Memphis, both from the identity of the city and kind of just what the Grizzlies have encompassed since they've been in Memphis. It's kind of a tough, hard-nosed team. I think Jay Crowder actually fits better there. But honestly, Mike Conley is such an interesting guy to me because I think that it's so funny how the way that the contract situations in the NBA work. A lot of times pretty good players hit the open market before the superstars hit, and they set the market. Joe Johnson did this a couple years ago. Joe Johnson signed the massive contract with the Nets after being a max guy in Atlanta, and for a brief moment in time, Joe Johnson was the highest paid player in the NBA, but that's because LeBron James hadn't become a free agent yet. Steph Curry, all the superstars hadn't become a free agent yet. Well, Mike Conley did that same thing. He signed this $155 million contract before this now pending tidal wave that's about to hit the NBA with all these $200 million deals. But I think that Mike Conley has always been very solid. I think Mike Conley and CJ McCollum are probably the two best players in the NBA that have never been named to an All-Star team. I think that Conley is a great fit in Utah because I do think that Conley is a true point guard that I think he will be very good with Donovan Mitchell. I think that's who you got to build around is Donovan Mitchell. I think that Conley will be very good with Rudy Gobert. I think it'd be very good with your boy Joe Ingles. I agree. I think it's a slam dunk trade for the Jazz.
If you're good with Jangles, you're good with me. I mean, the only question mark to me about Mike Conley is that he's 31 years old. And so he, is clearly a veteran guy. But in the NBA, here's the deal. In the NFL, you want broad talent. What do I mean by that? I mean you want breadth of talent across your roster. Having a superstar is great, but it's so much more important to just have good strength across the board.
Totally.
In the NBA, give me all the high-end talent I can get. And the best...
Or especially, you just got to have one.
You got to have one superstar, but here's my point in this. There's 4 players involved in this trade. The best player of the 4, by far, is Mike Conley,
yes.
And he's going to the Jazz.
Yep.
So you can cut 3 guys that are decent players, and I think that Grayson Allen is maybe the most intriguing of this group just because of the potential that's there. Kyle Korver, like you said, he's probably not even going to go to Memphis.
What do you think Grayson Allen's potential is?
I don't know, man.
Is Grayson Allen's ceiling Gordon Hayward? I know that's low-hanging fruit, and people will say, oh, they're both white. Okay, I get it. But I do think they are kind of similar players. I think Hayward's a lot more skilled.
I don't think Grayson Allen's going to be as good as...
I don't either. I don't either. I think I'm trying to think of a comp. Keep going, because I'll think of a comp.
He could be a 6th man of the year. How about that? If he won a 6th man of the year award, and that's you got to be good to do that. Really good.
Absolutely.
So, but I don't think that he is, I don't know. I think he's a very middle-of-the-road NBA player who finds a niche to fill. And he probably has a decent career in terms of duration as a result of that. But anyway, the point is that Utah just got better. I think the contract situation, when Mike Conley originally signed that contract, I think people thought, whoa, that could be an albatross, even though he's a really good player. But where we are at now with the money, this looks like a very reasonable contract to be taken on for a guy of his, skill level. And I don't know all the money that they unloaded in trading these guys. Jay Crowder, a starter, Kyle Korver, a starter at least at times for the Jazz. But I think it's a good pick. The 23rd overall, they are also giving up the 23rd overall pick in the first round and a protected 2020 first round pick. Again, anything out of the lottery usually, and even at times, even within the lottery, is you're looking for, a specific skill set that you can try and develop or a role-playing type of guy. I mean, you're not, again, a first-round pick just isn't. That is nothing like what it is in an NFL draft or something like that. It's just it's sort of thrown in there, and it's not that big a deal to them to be giving that away in order to get Mike Conley back. So I think this is a good deal. Does this change the landscape of the West or something like that? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think that Utah, the thing that disappointed me is that I thought Utah was good. I thought they were underwhelming this year. I thought they underperformed, particularly given what they were 2 years ago.
Yep.
And they have a young star in Donovan Mitchell who is absolutely outstanding. They have a great rim protector, great defensive player, and I think a budding offensive talent, at least certainly around the rim, and Rudy Gobert.
Totally.
And a great set of guys. I think they really got a nice mix in there. And so to add not all-star caliber player, you can't say, but
borderline though.
But borderline
sure
is something that is going to put the team, let's put it like this, the team 2 years ago that underperformed this year, they could surpass what they were not just last year, but from 2 years ago, and that puts them in a position to actually be have something to say in the West, and I think that's good. So this is a good trade, I think, for Utah. And for Memphis, I just don't know. I don't know what Memphis is up to right now. Memphis is just trying to rebuild the thing.
Well, and they're going to get a potential superstar they have the number 2 pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're likely going to get Ja Morant.
That's what they're saying.
That's why they trade Mike Conley.
Going to get Ja Morant, which is they've made that decision. It seems like
right, and then they're also going to be able to cut likely cut Kyle Korver, get some cap space. I also think this is interesting because does this impact the West? I do think it does, not in the fact that the Utah Jazz – I think the Utah Jazz are kind of right where they're at. I think they're between the 5th and 7th best team in the West right now.
Yeah.
I think Quinn Snyder's a good coach. I think Donovan Mitchell is a good player, but I don't think he's superstar level yet. And you have to have a superstar to get in the top half of the conference. You just do, especially when you have a bunch of other superstars in the West. But the reason I do think this has an impact on the West is there's a lot of speculation that Chris Paul was going to get traded to the Utah Jazz. Came out yesterday. I know you hate this kind of stuff, but James Harden went on the record and said it is there is no reconciliation with Chris Paul. It is over. We are done.
That, by the way, I don't hate that.
You just hate when sources say these guys don't get along.
But he said it, and I've heard other people on the radio go, listen, I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't know this as a fact. Now, I don't know what happened. Here's what's bizarre to me, okay? 18 months ago, we were talking about these two leaving weddings in Los Angeles together to go play midnight pickup hoops, and what a great situation it was for James Harden, who's only ever wanted to be with somebody who cares only about basketball all the time, and that Chris Paul was that guy, and they're best buddies, and they're doing the thing.
Totally.
And now, all of a sudden, it is absolutely a burned-up bridge. Now, I understand, relationships could go sour,
but
sideways,
also
whatever.
people change.
People change?
Especially with fame. James Harden is 10 times as famous and revered as he was when Chris Paul first joined the Rockets. James Harden is now an icon.
I mean,
James Harden was a budding, top 10 NBA scorer when Chris Paul joined the Rockets. James Harden just had one of the historic individual offensive seasons in NBA history.
So what? What?
But you don't think he acts differently?
I mean, I don't know. It wasn't exactly like he was the most, lovable dude in the history of the world at any point.
Totally. But there's obviously a lot about Chris Paul that's changed over his career, too.
Maybe so.
Chris Paul was Chris Paul with the Hornets was a totally different Chris Paul than Chris Paul at the end of the Lob City days in Los Angeles. Those guys all soured on each other. And, I don't know. I think that there is just a lot of drama when it comes to superstars in NBA locker rooms.
And by the way, while I have said, and I maintain, you don't have to be best of buddies to go out there and be outstanding basketball players and professionally great together and all of that. When it comes to a team, particularly when you're talking about the stars of the team, to have active disdain for each other, that is a no-go, okay? That's different than, we don't go to dinner together. So what? Would it be nice if you did? Would it be nice if you were roomies and, hung out? Sure. But that doesn't matter in the NBA. It doesn't matter in professional sports. But it does matter when you got two guys that cannot stand one another, can't be together, won't talk to each other. All that is bad, and especially in a basketball setting when there's so few players.
So back to the way that this impacts West. First of all, in terms of the Jazz, I do think that they're kind of stuck just because of the fact that they don't have a superstar guy. But I do think this makes them better because Mike Conley is good and they didn't have to give up too much for him. I also think this gives them the ability to get rid of Ricky Rubio, which has been the speculation for a little while. I like Ricky Rubio. I thought he's been very good in Utah. I thought he's had a career resurgence in Utah. But he's just a bad fit if you are all in on the front court of Derek Favors and Rudy Gobert because they can't shoot. And if you have two posts that can't shoot and then you have Ricky Rubio who can't shoot, that kills you. Mike Conley's by no means an elite, crazy good shooter, but he's a just fine shooter, and he's a significantly better shooter than Ricky Rubio.
Right.
And so I think it solves a lot of the Jazz's spacing issues. I think it'll help them space the floor a lot better, which then opens up a lot of stuff for Donovan Mitchell, which I think that's the whole point of this whole thing is getting Donovan Mitchell to be his best version of himself. In terms of the way that this affects the West now, though, I think that now you cross Utah off the list in terms of a place that Chris Paul ends up, and it could just be a domino because Chris Paul's going to end up somewhere. And, if that somewhere happens to be in L.A. with the Lakers, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, talk about, to me, a perfect guy for at least a season to have with the Los Angeles Lakers. Chris Paul could be a guy, and it sounds like the Lakers are doing absolutely everything they can. They're trying to reduce their entire roster from 5 down to 3 in order to make cap space for a max deal, which I'm surprised at to an extent, but it is what it is. By the way, the most impactful part of this to me in the immediate future of this trade is just the demonstration that the number 2 overall pick is going to be John Morant.
Yes.
And now we basically know what your first 3 are, and I think this, took a lot of pressure off the New York Knicks. Sit there and try and figure things out, too, to a certain extent. I mean, they were already, probably just going to take whoever was there at 3 anyways. Not really much more thought that goes into it, but now you know probably who that guy's going to be. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Colter, I wanted to talk just briefly to Chris Middleton has declined a $13 million player option. The right thing to do when you are an all-star off a 60-win basketball team who is probably in line for a max deal or close to a max deal. He can re-sign with the Milwaukee Bucks on a 5-year, $190 million deal, or he can go elsewhere for up to 4 years, $141 million. So what's 4 into 14 there? $45 million?
Yep.
Is that right? $35 million. No, 45. Am I getting this? I'm messing this up. Anyway, yes, $35 million, basically a year somewhere else for 4 years, or he can stay there and get about $48 million a year for 5 years. So, so he is, able to make more money, obviously, and have one more year on a max deal to stay in Milwaukee. I don't know what Milwaukee's financial situation is, but on later today, I guess, he becomes an unrestricted free agent. Chris Middleton does. Do you think Chris Middleton will stay in Milwaukee?
I think that so much of all the questions that you ask like that is how much broadly you believe the narrative that people don't want to play with LeBron James, how much broadly you believe the narrative that people do want to play with LeBron James, and how much specifically in terms of each individual player somebody wants to play with LeBron James. Basketball-wise, Chris Middleton is perfect fit for what the Lakers have right now. What else would you want besides a 3-and-D guy that can play with Anthony Davis and LeBron James? That would be ideal. It would be an unbelievable fit, especially because Chris Middleton is not a ball-dominant guy.
It would be great for the Lakers, but what does Chris Middleton want? I guess is the question. Not just the financial side of it, but, I mean, at some point in the NBA, it's almost a guarantee that you're gonna switch teams. You're gonna go somewhere. You're gonna be a free agent. You're gonna get traded, whatever it is. But I do think there's something to be said for a young team that has come up together in a city that has not been good for a long, long time. You have an absolute MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo as your teammate. And you are the unquestioned number 2 guy who is an absolutely critical piece in that puzzle. And you're doing it in a place where, you're carving out a name for yourself in a city for yourself. You're not just one in a line of guys. I mean, do you want to go to Los Angeles and be remembered as Robert Horry? And by the way, that ain't bad. That's great. Go win a champion, do all that whole thing. But if you could do it in a place where it hasn't been done before, Kyle Lowry could buy the CN Tower in Toronto right now if he wanted to for $5. So, that it's that sort of thing is, and I got no idea if Chris Middleton, what he thinks about Southeast Wisconsin and Milwaukee and the area and all that kind of stuff. But as a player, I don't know, it just seems to me like, why is the grass always greener in sunny Southern California? You got this great thing going here. And by the way, I think you have to feel like you left it out there, like you came up short of not merely a championship, but really the potential and the expectation you had for yourself with the Milwaukee Bucks this last year, even though you were in the Eastern Conference Finals. And let's go get this thing done, And how much of a draw would that be beyond the fact that you can make, $5 million a year more for an extra year, whatever it is, to do that in a city where it hasn't been done before, to me would seem like incredibly appealing.
Totally, and I think that's like when we're debating the merits of chemistry and do you get along and stuff like that, there's definitive tiers in the NBA. And I think some guys think of themselves in maybe an elevated tier of what they're actually in. Jimmy Butler being one of those. But I do think that there's a certain element of guys like in the Chris Middleton, J.J. Redick tier, really good players, guys that can make an all-star team every once in a while but they're complementary players to superstars almost always. I think those guys value teammates and relationships with teammates more. And I think this really just comes down to how much does Chris Middleton like playing with Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Right.
I mean, sometimes I really do think you can encounter a transcendent player and recognize that and say, man, I can't leave this.
And
I think that Chris Middleton, as a former second-round pick, who is a spot shooting type of guy, I don't know much about Chris Middleton, but it seems to me that he would be inclined to gravitate towards that rather than, trying to chase, a max contract to be the number one guy on a bad team.
Totally. Well, and who knows? Who knows what motivates a guy? But that seems to me to be crazy. I can totally understand wanting to be a Los Angeles Laker. All the dysfunction and everything else aside, living in Los Angeles, if that appeals to you, great. But you're telling me I can team up as a max or close to max guy with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Yeah, I'll go for that. That sounds great. Let's go play. Let's go ball out. And so it's about both things. It's about how great would it be to be in Los Angeles and with that team if that was an opportunity for you, or, is the thing that you've already been working towards building, is leaving that in an unfinished state going to be okay with you? I mean, I guess that's what it is, right? You're building a house. The house is completely livable. It's a nice home, but it's not finished yet. But you have put your hard work and effort and toil into the house, and so have a certain level of ownership about the house beyond simply, this is the place that I live. But another house comes available that is in a better neighborhood and maybe even a nicer house than this one, and you could go do it. And so is the work that you've done in the house that you're just going to walk away from, does that mean anything to you or not? And now the analogy ends because a house is an inanimate object as opposed to a team and a teammate and people that are, dynamic and relational and all of that kind of stuff. So, I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's a good question. And I do think that I would judge Chris Middleton for going and trying to be the best player on the Knicks. I'd go, you know what? Dumb move. If he was to stay in Milwaukee or go to Los Angeles, I would go, yeah, okay. That makes sense to me. Either one.
One other transaction worth mentioning today, or I guess lack thereof transactions, Al Horford declined to exercise his $30 million player option with the Boston Celtics.
Okay. Seems like a lot.
That's fascinating because I don't think that Al Horford's going to get that money on the free agent market. But I do think he could get a little bit. You should say, I can't say long-term deal, but he could get a 3 or 4 year contract, his last contract, basically.
Yeah.
But I think that we can talk about Kyrie Irving this and Kevin Durant that and Kawhi Leonard and blah 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 blah. If I was a team that had an established superstar, say LeBron James or Anthony Davis, or if I was a team that had say the Rockets do get rid of Chris Paul, they need a second banana for James Harden, or pick them. Pick whatever superstar you want. Al Horford is what guy that I would want to go after because Al Horford's not going to demand the spotlight from anybody.
Right.
Al Horford's going to get it done, period. He straight got it done every year of his career. Al Horford's only missed the playoffs once in his career. And it's not as if he's played for absolute juggernaut teams. He helped. He was a key and perhaps the most underrated part of the Atlanta Hawks when the Atlanta Hawks were a lot better than people ever gave him credit for. And he's been really good in Boston, too. I thought last year with Kyrie Irving out, Gordon Hayward out, Jason Tatum's shot-making ability stole all the headlines, and Jaylen Brown's reemergence and explosive athleticism turned a bunch of heads. But the key, the linchpin, the guy who kept that team together was Al Horford. they were able to play all those young guys and be so stellar defensively because of Al Horford directing all the traffic. I just think Al Horford is and has been underrated throughout his entire NBA career.
Yeah.
And if I always talk about this, the fit, but guys like Al Horford, guys like Paul Millsap, those guys are so invaluable because you can pair them with another superstar, and they're just fine with being the number 2, the number 3, the number 4 dude.
Yeah.
And you're not. There's no chance for disruption really. You're just rocking. And I think Al Horford is a good locker room guy. I think he's going to produce at a high level at least for the next couple of years. I just think Al Horford is going to be a more consequential free agent piece than people give him credit for.
Mm-hmm. All right. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Take a quick break. By the way, at Gus Tutel, you go on there, you tell us, who do you think is the best athlete from the state of Montana right now? Getting a bunch of feedback on Twitter on this, so we'll go through that at the top of the hour. If you want to get involved, you certainly can do it right there.
One other thing we got to remind people of is we are broadcasting remotely. We're broadcasting live from Fort Missoula Friday. Southgate Mall sponsoring our broadcast on Friday, so big thanks to them. But it is the Intermountain Champions Cup, a youth soccer team, one of the biggest in the region. We've done several interviews with both members of Missoula Strikers as well as FC Missoula leading up to this thing, and 100-plus teams is what they're expecting.
Yeah, it's gonna
so
be
it should be a great day down there. I think they have some food trucks down there and a big event, but Tutel Nuanez will be there as well, broadcasting live 4 to 6 from Fort Missoula. So come say hi, come check it out, and tune in.
Yeah, come say hello. We'd love to see you down there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it on Friday afternoon, doing the show from down there. And, by the way, a little tease, there is a soccer player from the state of Montana who has been submitted as the best athlete from the state of Montana right now. So we'll give you that at the top of the hour. But it is time, boys and girls, for a Wing It Wednesday. 329-1899. 329-1899, the phone number. Call right now. Get yourself on the line, and we will get you set up. If you answer a couple of trivia questions with some wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern, the best wings in the city of Missoula, 329-1899. Call right now. We'll do a Wing It Wednesday right after this. Hi, boys and girls. Ryan Tutel
and Colter Nuanez
from Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio, from your very favorite Tutel Nuanez podcast, and now officially Gracious Mercy on television statewide.
That's right. We've been doing a radio show and a podcast since August of 2017, and now it's time for us to expand our reach into statewide television on SWX.
We're on SWX every weekday from 4 to 6 live on your televisions. It's available on channel 199 on Spectrum Cable or on 23.3 on your antenna television. And you can download the Watch SWX app and get us that way on your phones and devices as well.
And of course, we'll still be right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio from Missoula and the Bitterroot Valley. And as always, you can find the podcast, the live stream, and everything else you need, 1029ESPN.com.
Colter, do you think that we're spreading ourselves too thin? Are we going to saturate these people and they're just going to start hating us, the inevitable backlash of the great heights to which we have now attained?
No chance. Tutel Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show.
Right now at Carl Tyler Chevrolet, take advantage of employee pricing and up to $7,500 in rebates on all 2018 Silverados. Get the most out of your summer with a reliable truck that'll take you anywhere during Carl Tyler Chevrolet's June Silverado sell down. Save $11,719 on select 2018 Silverado 1500s. View our full inventory at gmofmontana.com or 3663 North Reserve Street. Carl Tyler Chevrolet. Find new roads.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. For the second straight outing in Idaho Falls, the Missoula Osprey fell behind early and could not rally late, falling 6-4 at the Idaho Falls Chuckers Wednesday. One night after losing 4-0, the hosts jump out to a 6-0 lead. Idaho Falls slugger Michael Amodi hit a first-inning grand slam, and the hosts never looked back. Cesar Garcia hit a double in the top of the fifth inning to help the visitors begin a threat that peaked with a bases-loaded, nobody-out situation, but ended the inning still trailing 6-3 to the Osprey. Garcia drove in David Sanchez, who led off the ninth inning with a triple to begin the final frame, and the O's got the tying run to the plate before the comeback bid fell short. The Osprey are now 2-3 this season, with the final game of their season-opening 6-game road trip tonight at Idaho Falls.
Missoula Mavs took care of business on the road against the Helena Senators with a sweep on Tuesday. Mavs won the first contest 8-1 and registered a 5-4 victory in the second game. Dane Frazier followed a 3-for-5 performance in the opener that included scoring 2 runs by adding 2 more hits and driving in 2 more for Missoula in the nightcap.
And finally, Idaho has named Zach Ploss as the interim head coach for its men's basketball team after Don Verlin was terminated last week. Ploss has been an assistant at the University of Idaho since 2015 and spent 10 years prior to that at Nevada. Well, good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, and all of you. 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana. Great to have you all along. We are broadcasting from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. Check us out on Twitter at Gus Tutel, at 102.9 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT. Anything going on Skyline Sports MT? Hold on before you answer that. 329-1899, phone number if you want to do a Wing It Wednesday. Okay, we'll get to it here in just a second. And we'll do another one in the second hour as well. We'll get you right in here in just a moment. But Coulter, what's going on at Skyline Sports right now? What do we got? What's up?
I mean, I've been slacking. No, we just completed our podcast series, both Bobcats by the Numbers and Grizz by the Numbers, thanks to Brooks Nuanez and Andrew Houghton for participating. What those are they're each hour-long episodes breaking down 1/3 of each of the Montana State and Montana football rosters. So we do number 1 through 33, just break down every single guy. What's going on? What's the status of each guy? And then numbers 34 through 67 and on down the line. So 3 parts, about 3 hours worth of content each. So you find those always. And then you also have the ESPN roundtables up there. A lot of podcast stuff this time of year. We're also incrementally getting through our recruiting series for both Montana and Montana State, catching up with some of the very late signees that were guys that signed with the football programs in both Montana and Montana State around the signing day, because there's some guys that came on late visits that we didn't really get caught up with, but then I thought it was a good kind of series to wait for their senior years to end and then kind of catch up with them on what's been like to know your future, how are you planning for coming to fall camp. A lot of these guys do track, so there's a lot of track stuff involved in that too, so you can go check out all that stuff, SkylineSportsMT.com.
Very good. All right. It is time for a Wing It Wednesday. We'll try to get some wings, maybe even a shirt to the Desperado Sports Taverns. We go to the phone. We welcome in Ross to the show. Ross, how are you?
What's up, guys?
How's it going? We're happy to have you back in here, Ross. You ready to get some wings going? You ready for this?
Always, man.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
What's up, Coulter?
What's up, Ross? How you doing, buddy?
Ross knows
Good.
the deal. He's an old veteran around here. 3 questions for you. You get 2 right, you got your wings. You get all 3, you get a shirt. If you need any help, Coulter's your lifeline. All right, Ross?
I'm in. Let's go.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot.
Hello?
Tell me likey. Tell me what wing.
Oh, we're still here. We're just playing the soundbite. Don't worry. Don't worry. The good people of the community are hearing it, even if you're not, Ross. You did a good job holding on there. All right, here we go, bud. We're all over the map. It's all sports today, but we're jumping all over the place. All right, so here we go. We start tomorrow night is the NBA draft. Which team has 2 of the first 4 picks overall in the 2019 NBA draft?
Pelicans.
The New Orleans Pelicans. Absolutely right, Ross. Very well done. Very well done. Proud of you for that you're able to get it. Okay. Second question. I think this is a little bit harder, more interesting.
Okay.
What is the only team on earth that has played in every single World Cup? Soccer. Everyone.
Oh, man. I have a couple of guesses, but Coulter, you know this one?
We're talking men or women, guess?
Men. Yes,
Every single, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. That's a really good question because I think that
there's only like 4 or 5 that are even possible, but each of them seems completely reasonable, right?
I would say that
Totally.
the 5 that I would say are in the mix are Brazil, Spain, Italy, Germany, and England. And if I was to have to pick one of those, I know Brazil's won the most times, but I think that's probably where the trickery in your question comes in, Gus.
I come with no guy.
Man.
By the way, I think Italy missed the last World
They
Cup,
actually
right?
did. You're
Wasn't
right. No, they absolutely
the
did.
thing?
They absolutely did.
So I mean,
I know that Mexico has missed one. I know Argentina has missed one. I would say Germany.
I was going to say Germany. Let's do it.
You know, you just don't want to overthink it. It's Brazil.
It's Brazil. Gosh.
The Brazilians have never, ever missed a World Cup. Ross, that's okay.
All right.
You still got one in the bag. Now, I'm going to leave this up to you. Do you want an Olympic gymnastics question or do you want an historical heavyweight boxing question?
Oh, man. I guess the boxing.
Okay. Who was the boxer that from whom Muhammad Ali suffered his first defeat? Who beat Muhammad Ali, giving him his first loss in his professional career?
Gosh, I feel bad, Ross. You wasted your lifeline on a soccer question, and I know this one. I hope you do too.
Frazier?
Joe Frazier for the wings. Ross, very well done. It is Joe Frazier.
And then he went and got his behind whipped by George Foreman.
Yes, he did. But hey, you can't take away a win over Muhammad Ali. That is for sure. Ross, get your information to Reese back there. Very well done, my friend. That's how you do it. And you got your wings to the Desperado, okay?
Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Would you like to hear the gymnastics question, Coulter?
I can't wait. Where are you looking up this question?
Dude, I just have it all on tap.
Do you like gymnastics?
Yes, I do. I like watching gymnastics. So gymnastics and figure skating were and are my mom's like all-time Olympic favorites. And my mom is I would say the bigger sports fan of my parents. My dad's a big sports fan too, but my mom has really grown into her sports fandom, I must say. But she has always been an Olympics girl.
Mm-hmm.
Loves
very parallel
Olympics.
Tracks for our mothers.
So I'm walking down the street trying to do triple axels like I'm Oksana Bayul as I'm 8 years old, which is maybe one reason I was less popular than I had anticipated being later in life. But this is the history. So Mary Lou Retton and all of that when you talk about the Olympic team, and the splendor and the athleticism and that. So the summer was the Olympics, and the winter, was the figure skating. But I certainly do like the gymnastics to this day, and particularly what the United States women's team is doing as a group is pretty remarkable. I mean, they're dominating the thing. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of other that has been going on, and ugly and awful and sad, and glad that it is and has been and is being exposed, and I expect dealt with, although it's sort of hard to say at times. So that is very, very frustrating and angering to me. But the act of gymnastics, I mean, look, man, if you asked me to throw on a pair of skis and ski a downhill at an Olympic Games, I could do it. I could go ski the course, take me quite a while, but I'd get down.
Or maybe not quite a while, but you'd get hurt.
No, I mean, I
those courses are so slick, man.
No, but I could ski anything, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure,
quote unquote anything, but I could ski it. You want me to run the 100? I could do it. You want me to throw the jav? I could do it. I absolutely couldn't do any of the things in the gym. I mean, I don't think that I could do one, hold it on, go around the deal on the high bar. I might be able to walk across the balance beam. That's probably the best I could do. If you ask me to jump, can't do it. You ask me to hold myself out on the rings, no chance. Like, I could, a flip on the floor program. I'm so much more likely to get severely injured doing a gymnastics routine than skiing the downhill. I mean, that is a fact.
But you know how much I love track and field, especially women's track and field.
Yeah.
And, I love all sports, and I love a great deal of women's sports. I think that Serena Williams is arguably the greatest athlete of our lifetime, man or woman. I mean, the fact that she is still the best tennis player she has been since, like, the turn of the century, it's astounding. But some of the women's gymnasts now, specifically Simone Biles and Allie Raisman, do things that defy belief. I mean, Simone Biles she jumps so high and does so many flips. It's almost as if I would love a master of physics to explain to me how this is possible. How does someone that small jump that high and do what she does?
Oh, it only looks like she's only 18 inches off the ground, but she's only 6 inches tall. So
Regardless, the speed and explosion, if you proportionally...
Oh, it's insane.
If you proportionally added that to, like, a guy in the NBA, you're talking about having, like, 100-inch vertical. I mean, she jumps so high she can do multiple flips in the air on the flat ground. It's so crazy to me. Yeah. Every time the Olympics rolls around, I'm always like, man, that these girls are competing on other times than the Olympics. Why don't they show that? Give me that on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it is remarkable. It's totally remarkable. Okay, here's the question, Coulter. In the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal, Nadia Comaneci became the first ever gymnast to score a perfect 10. From what country was Nadia Comaneci?
Nadia Comaneci. Are
you sure?
I'm positive. Absolutely.
I don't know about that. We'll look.
Is she from the Soviet Union?
She's not from the Soviet Union.
Where is she from?
Actually, this is a good question.
Nadia Comaneci is her name, though. I know that for certain. My mother is a very passionate. Nadia Comaneci and Mary Lou Retton are very prominent figures.
Okay. I'm gonna maintain a healthy incredulity. Romania.
Yep, Romania has been the peer.
Now this is
competitor.
Me being a dope. Was Romania not part of the USSR?
I think Nadia Comaneci was in the 80s. Is that correct?
76.
76. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's definitely some gray area there.
Eastern Bloc, very
definitely Eastern Bloc.
Okay.
I mean, remember Bella Caruso?
Oh, of course.
So Bella Caruso was, I believe, Nadia Comaneci's coach then, and then that was what the big coup is. He came to coach the United States team.
Okay. Quick break. If you're a Cowboys fan, don't go anywhere.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
You know you need a pick-me-up, and Town Pump has just the thing. Make a quick stop at Town Pump today and grab 3 12-ounce Red Bulls for only $7. Or get any size fountain drink for only $1. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
Tutel and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes, 1029ESPN.com. Tutel and Nuanez. All guests join the show on the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studio on ESPN Radio in Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
If you're a Cowboys fan, you're going to want to hear this, or maybe you won't. I don't know. This seems pretty universally accepted at this point. And I think this is a worthwhile conversation to have at this juncture. It's Tutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio. Glad to be with all of you. So here's the deal, Colter. By the way, at Gus Tutel, if you want to continue to give us who is the best athlete in the world from Montana right now, today. Not the best ever, but as of this moment, who is the most impressive athlete from the state of Montana? Yesterday, Colter, we spent quite a bit of time on the NFL, and we talked about, particularly by division, what are the best divisions in football. And you and I both agreed that the NFC East is the weakest division in the NFC. And I think as I go back and I'm looking at this, to think about the Philadelphia Eagles, who you said have no chance to win a Super Bowl, I disagree. I think they do have a chance to win a Super Bowl. But in any case, are Super Bowl champions and a playoff team with a playoff win last season. And then you look at the Dallas Cowboys, who were What were they? What was their record last year?
10-6. They won the division.
Okay.
Is that right? 10-6?
Yep, they're 10-6. They won the division. And did they lose in the first round or did they win a game and then lose? I can't remember.
They lost in the first round.
Okay. In any case, they were 10-6 last year, and that's coming off 13-3 a year ago. And you and I, Colton, would both agree this is a bad defense right here. I mean, this is
bad as in good.
Bad as in good. Bad as in good. This is a real deal defense. And you sit there, you got Amari Cooper, you got Ezekiel Elliott, and you and I are both pretty tepid on Dak Prescott. But, you know, the history of this offensive line has been very, very strong. So this looks like a very good team to me on paper overall. Washington and the New York Giants, no. But these two teams, pretty good. And this is why it's so interesting that Jason Garrett was given a 1-year contract extension, which is basically a prove it to me. And here is my question, because there's high expectations on this team. None of them higher from the guy than from the guy who's making the decisions, Jerry Jones. Here's the question for you, Coulter. You don't know what I'm asking you, but I'm going to ask you now. How many games into the season are we going to be until Jason Garrett is shown the door? Now, you and I have both brought up the Dallas Cowboys schedule, and we're going to go by this a little bit. And, you know, at what point is because the seat is already warm quite warm.
Does Jerry Jones have the gumption to fire Jason Garrett?
Oh, yes.
How has he not fired him already?
But he's got the gumption to do it. Yes. There's no question to me about this.
Well, their schedule's not that tough.
So they open happily with New York Giants at home, on the road at Washington, then at home against the Dolphins.
So they're 2-1 or 3-0.
Exactly. They go to the Saints.
Loss.
Probably. And this is a game right here where if you are the Cowboys this year, you have to say, we need to be better than the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are the should-have-been Super Bowl representatives of the conference and a very good football team with an elite quarterback, and you're going...
Elite a lot of things now.
Yeah, and we got to be better than that team. You know, this is going to be, I don't know, this is the Sunday night game on September 29th. I think you're sitting there going, we got to win that football game. I don't think they win it, especially in the Superdome. So now you're 2-2 or 3-1. Then you host the Green Bay Packers, who are a pretty significant question mark. I mean, they could be a 12-win team. They could be a 12-loss team. Be a 10-loss team at least.
And the way that they're constructed, because it's so much the Aaron Rodgers show on offense, that it elicits them getting into shootouts a lot. And that's a bad formula when you're playing the Cowboys, because as we saw in the playoffs 2 years ago, I thought the Packers were actually the better team in that game. They just weren't the better team defending the run, and the Cowboys ran the ball straight down their throat.
Yep. Then they go on the road to the Jets, and then they have the Eagles in that divisional game at home going into the bye week.
So that looks like 4 to 5 wins to me.
I agree. And here's what I think. If they're 5-3 going into the bye week,
yep.
Jason Garrett's the coach after the bye week.
Yep.
If they're 4-4 or worse, that's it.
You think?
I do.
Wow. I don't know, man. That's
it.
When was the last time a coach got fired before the trade deadline? The guys get fired late in the year, week 12.
The trade deadline is less consequential than the bye.
Well, no, right. But, I guess when's the last time a coach got fired in the single-digit weeks? Coaches get fired during the season, but it usually takes till week 12, week 13, week 14.
No, but here's the thing. That's usually because the season's unsalvageable, and we're going to start the new direction heading into next year right now, because we already know. I think this is an action of hope / expectation / anger for this very season, 2019 for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys, I think, could be 6-2 at the bye week. I mean, they have the talent. If they go 3-0 in their first 3, which are all they're going to be the favorites in all three of those games and should be, and should win them each individually. They should be 3-0. Say they lose to the Saints, maybe, and then they lose either to the Packers or the Eagles, but win, if they split with the Eagles in Green Bay, you'd be 6-2. Maybe you're 7-1 at that point. I don't know. And if that's the case, then good for Jason Garrett, good for the Cowboys, and they're rolling and they're making a run at this thing.
But the second half of
their
schedule
season is a lot harder.
Totally.
But also, if they are 6-2 or better, I don't think Jason Garrett's going anywhere during the season at that point. I mean, I don't think they go week 15. Let's put it like this: Is there any way that Dallas is a 4 or 5 win team this year?
No,
I don't think so.
No,
they're going to be
no. They're 8-8 team at the worst. 7-9. Say 7-9 is their basement.
Okay, but the point is,
you never know though, man, because who's their backup quarterback? I mean, if Dak Prescott gets hurt or Ezekiel gets hurt, I mean that's majorly impactful.
Yeah, I mean Kellen Moore is their offensive coordinator now,
it's very interesting.
Very, very interesting. Very.
It's a lot of talk about the communication between Kellen Moore and Matt Miller. Matt Miller's a Boise State wide receiver.
Yeah, right.
Now he's the offensive coordinator at Montana State.
Right.
They are both in very similar spots, albeit Kellen Moore is about half a dozen years older than Matt Miller, but Kellen Moore is certainly one of the youngest offensive coordinators in the NFL, just like Matt Miller is one of the youngest offensive coordinators in Division I football over there at Montana State. It's interesting. I think Jason Garrett's a terrible coach. I say it on this show all the time. I guess this is why I don't actually think he's a terrible coach. I just think he is so mediocre. He's just so middle of the road, and that's what just kills me when analyzing the Cowboys. The Cowboys also occupy a very unique spot in my thought of the NFL because I hate the Cowboys broadly as a franchise, what they are, what they've been, and it's definitely a sports hate, right? I love the Cowboys exist because I know exactly who I'm going for every time the Cowboys are on TV, not the Cowboys. But personnel-wise, I've never liked the Cowboys team more than I like this team. I think Dak Prescott's overrated, but besides that, I mean, what team plays football like I like more than the Cowboys? They run the ball. They have a great offensive line. They have the sickest linebacker in the league, in my opinion, in Jalen Smith. They have ferocious defensive linemen, both inside and outside, and Tyrone Crawford and DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, the Cowboys are nice in a lot of different ways, especially the ways that I think you need to be great in football. That's why I think it's so frustrating to watch them. I mean, even last year, win the division, great, but with what you got, you should be better than you should be a 12-win team.
You know who should be the head coach of this football team? Just complete the whole circus, but also be the type of person that this football team should have?
Lincoln Riley.
No. Harbaugh.
Oh, my God.
Get him out of Michigan and bring him down to Big D and let Harbaugh just pace the sidelines in cleats and khakis and just start screaming.
What do they call the Cowboys practice place? It's like Neverland, but that's not actually what it's called.
Frisco.
Whatever. It's going to spontaneously combust if Jerry Jones and Jim Harbaugh are in the same place for more than a month.
Let's go. Anyway, I agree. I mean, they should be a no doubt slam dunk playoff team given what they are on the field, and there is very much doubt to me that they're a playoff team because of the head coach. And as much as clearly Jerry Jones likes Jason Garrett, and maybe Jason Garrett seems like a perfectly good, fun guy, whatever, to be around, all that stuff, whatever. He has not gotten it done when it's mattered in the postseason, and he has not gotten the most out of the teams that he has had. And this is maybe the best team that they've had in a long time in Dallas. Long time. Sutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 coming at you. Who is the best player or best athlete, from the state of Montana right now? Who is it? You tell us, and we will discuss this right after this.
Got to fact check one thing real quick. The Cowboys actually did win a playoff game last year, and then they lost to the Rams.
Okay. Who did they beat?
Seahawks.
Oh, that's
24-22.
right. In the Australian kicker doesn't know how to do an onside kick punt to the other team play at the end that Seattle ran. A very anticlimactic end to the season for the Seahawks. That's right. Hey, boys and girls, RecCon is this July 19th and 20th at Fort Missoula. It's where outdoor recreation and conservation meet. Dozens of exhibitors from gear manufacturers to outdoor nonprofits will be there. Outdoor learning labs throughout the day for people to learn more about products and initiatives from various groups. Lots of cool off-road vehicles. It's fun for the whole family. There's an exhibitor area from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. both days. Your tickets are on sale right now at www.recconmontana, RECCON Montana.com. Limited camp spots are also available, so you got to act now. So go down there and check it out. There's going to be beer from Big Sky Brewing, food trucks. Going to be a really fun time. July 19th and 20th, RecCon. Go check it out.
Jayco and Rangish Brothers are teaming up once again. We take pride in being Western Montana's #1 Jayco dealer and strive to continually offer you the best quality, pricing, and reliability. To celebrate the arrival of summer, we are offering June hot buys. From RVs to parts and service, we got you covered. Save big on Jayco J-Flight SLX, 264 bunkhouse travel trailer, Sleep 7 starting at only $14,995 with payments as low as $149 per month OAC. Don't miss our June hot buys going on now. Only where a handshake means something. Rangish Brothers RV Center.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
The splash of launching a new boat, the quiet of a favorite campsite, the noisy fun of a family barbecue on your new deck. Whatever summer sounds like to you, make it happen with a personal loan from Farmers State Bank. 9 locations to serve you, or start the loan application process online at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce 2 of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive open range AT that we believe is our quietest, smoothest, and best all-season traction tire ever, or the Reputation, our exclusive high-mileage premium passenger tire. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 open range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain, they still need to get to work, they need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Hey, Tutel Nuanez here. Can't tell you how many times we've heard the face for radio joke since we came on SWX television, but it's been a fun endeavor so far.
And now our esteemed producer Tommy is pushing the envelope even further. We got our own YouTube channel.
That's right. If you want to watch us every day from your computer, your tablet, your cell phone, you can check out Tutel Nuanez on YouTube.
Tutel Nuanez, live every weekday from 4 to 6 in the afternoons on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula, SWX Montana statewide, and now around the planet Earth on YouTube.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. For the second straight outing in Idaho Falls, the Missoula Osprey fell behind early and could not rally late, falling 6-4 to the Idaho Falls Chuckers Wednesday night. One night after losing 4-0, the hosts jump out to a 6-0 lead. Idaho Falls slugger Michael Amodi hit a first-inning grand slam, and the hosts never looked back. Cesar Garcia hit a double in the top of the 5th inning for the Osprey to help the visitors begin a threat that peaked with a bases-loaded and nobody-out scenario, but the O's still trailed 6-3 at the end of that inning. Garcia drove in David Sanchez, who led off the ninth inning with a triple to begin the final frame, and the O's got the tying run to the plate before the comeback bid fell short. The Ospreys are now 2-3 this season with the final game of their season-opening 6-game road trip at Idaho tonight.
The Missoula Mavericks took care of business on the road against the Helena Senators with a sweep on Tuesday. The Mavs won the first contest 8-1 and registered a 5-4 victory in the second game. Dane Frazier followed a 3-for-5 performance in the opener that included 2 runs scored by adding 2 more hits and driving in 2 more runs for Missoula in the nightcap.
And finally, Idaho has named Zach Kloss as the interim head coach for its men's basketball team after Don Verlin was terminated last week. Kloss has been an assistant at UI since 2015 after spending 10 years in Nevada. Who is the best athlete alive today that's an athlete today from the state of Montana? That is the question. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, and online at kurtzpolaris.com. Check us out on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream no matter where you are. Listen in live. Very nice feature brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you missed anything in the first hour, we got you covered on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, Spotify, all of those things. Go check them out. Check them out right now. You can listen whenever it's convenient to you. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Coulter, yes, an interesting question. Who is the best athlete from the state of Montana today? Not best ever, but as of right now, who's the best, who's the greatest athlete on earth from the state of Montana? Put that out on the Twitter. We got a bunch of feedback there, so we'll go through some of that. I came up with 3 names, and there's probably 20 to 25 legitimate answers to this question.
And maybe even more.
Maybe more. But 3 that I came up with. Now, when we talk about athletes, the question is, well, do you mean the person who's in fact the best athlete if you ran them through a combine? I take it to mean
most accomplished in their sport.
That's what I would understand.
That's what I interpret this as well.
And I also think there's something to be said for age. If somebody's had longer time to do something, but you can anyway. We'll get into it, but I think McKenna Morley from Big Fork, who is now a distance runner and a first-team All-American NCAA running now at the University of Colorado, is absolutely in this conversation. I think Mike Person, as an offensive lineman and a starter in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers, is in this conversation. And I think, if you're an Olympic medalist, Maggie Voisin, moguls skier from Whitefish, Olympian, is 100% in this conversation as well. And there's a bunch of others. I'll have you give me some names, and then I'll throw some Twitter feedback at you too.
Sure. Yeah, I think that making a broad list and then sort of debating this is fun. I think it's great. Here's the list that I made. This is a pretty long list, but there's a lot of really good athletes from the state of Montana, as there always has been.
Yep.
Tremendous amount of track and field specifically.
Yep.
And that's why I always push us to cover so much track and field, because I do think that in terms of nationally elite, it is among the nationally elite things that Montana produces, especially female track and field athletes. But one thing that I sort of considered as well was a guy like Brock Coyle. Brock Coyle just recently retired from the NFL.
Right.
But Brock Coyle started a game in the NFL last year before he got hurt. It's hard to take that away from him. I understand that he is a quote-unquote retired player right now, but Brock Coyle is also all of 28 years old, 29 years old. I don't think he lost all of his athleticism overnight. He's in his athletic prime, and he was less than 12 months ago starting for the San Francisco 49ers before he incurred a horrific neck injury.
Right.
So I did list people like him. I also, Jill Barta was a girl that was at Gonzaga from Fairfield, Montana, and she was, the West Coast Conference Player of the Year. She was closing in on becoming the West Coast Conference's all-time leading scorer. Then she declared for the WNBA draft and ended up that not panning out, and so she sort of just quit basketball abruptly. She could have grad transferred, but she ended up not doing that. But again, she is less than 18 months removed from averaging 20 points per game in the West Coast Conference at Gonzaga. So I think that she at least deserves mentioning. But, I think probably one of my number one guys, and a guy that somehow he gets overlooked a lot in the scope of Montana, and I don't really know why, is Josh Huestis. Josh Huestis was a first-round draft pick out of Stanford, Montana. Out of Stanford University. He's from Great Falls, Montana.
Right.
And he is a guy that not only was a first-round draft pick, but I know he's bounced back and forth between the D-League, but there was a moment in time when he was starting for the Oklahoma City Thunder when they had the best record in the NBA.
Vince Bagby, buddy over there at SWX, said Josh Huestis on his list, as well as McKenna Morley, and also added Trey Stinkle.
As far as just pure, what have they accomplished at this exact last calendar year, McKenna Morley being a first-team All-American in both cross-country and track and field is pretty hard to beat. McKenna Morley has been an absolute phenom since she burst onto the track scene. She's basically won championships and threatened records since she was 14 years old. And then she comes to the University of Montana and wins multiple championships here and then transfers to Colorado and continues to this role. I think she is a 6-time All-American at this point, including earning first-team honors in both cross-country and track this year. A couple of others that I listed, Jamie Pickens, who was a 3-time state champion, 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year out of Helena High, future Lady Grizz. On the national scene, she's actually probably the most recognized in terms of high school because, she is a 4-star recruit. The last ESPN Hot 100 had her as the 91st best recruit in the country coming out of Helena High School. Future Lady Grizz, that could be a huge turning point for the Lady Grizz program. Trace Tinkle has been an all Pac-12 player multiple times at Oregon State, so you have to mention him. Riggs Johnston competing in the U.S. Amateur multiple years in a row and just absolutely blowing the doors off of state championship tournaments in Montana. He's going to Arizona State out of Libby. That's an accomplishment all in itself.
Yep.
Hannah Fauser was an inch away from being a All-American in the hammer throw, but shattered the Big Sky Conference record in the hammer at the Big Sky Outdoor Meet. She's a Missoula Big Sky native. Erica McLeod, an all-time record holder at the Big Sky Conference level as well from Butte, Montana. A couple other out-of-state track people that I thought of, Sadie Henderson, who just was an All-American from San Francisco, University of San Francisco. She was also an All-American at Boise State. She's from Corvallis, Montana. A couple of the other really good track people. It's hard to say Ashley McElmurray's not knocking on the door, even though she's still in high school, because she's going to Nebraska. She's going to a top 20 program out of Sentinel, and we looked up her marks, compared her marks from this year to the Big Ten. She would be a top 10 or 12 in the hurdles and the long jump and the triple jump right now. So I think Ashley McElmurray, Lauren Hagen, her teammate, who's the all-class record holder in the triple jump, and then Delaney Bond from Bozeman, all three of those girls are shattering records across the board in high school track, so they at least bear mentioning. The Aragon sisters from Billings, they're both professional runners now. Hard to say when you're making money doing track and field that you're not one of the best ever to come out of Montana. And Patrick Casey on the men's side is in that same vein. You mentioned Maggie Voice, and you got to throw Darian Stevens in there as well. She was an Olympian mogul skier from Missoula right here.
And if you go in there, we got to throw Quinn Wolferman into the mix as
well.
No
doubt.
He's
Dew Tour, Missoula native.
Ski, what do you call it? Ski street skiing?
Totally. You mentioned a couple of the you mentioned Mike Person.
Yep.
A couple other young ladies that went out of state that just recently wrapped up their careers. Taylor Mims, who's from Billings, she was a 3-time first-team All Pac-12 outside hitter at Washington State in volleyball. Morgan Ray was a 4-year ace pitcher for Ohio State out of Frenchtown. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Made it to the Super Regional this year. Avery Collins, who's the 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year in soccer from Bozeman. She was a 4-year starter at Stanford while, oh, by the way, having a 4.0 GPA the duration of her academic career. So I think that's probably setting you up pretty okay for life. Have a 4.0 at Stanford while being a 4-year starter on the soccer pitch. And those girls bear mentioning. And then Olivia Roberts, who's from right here in Missoula.
Right.
I mean, she was the Mountain West Player of the Year at Wyoming. Less than a year ago. So a lot of really good ones. And then as far as contemporary guys that are playing in college, okay, go ahead.
You want
go
some
ahead.
from Twitter?
I do. Yes. Give me some more
guys?
from Twitter.
Here we go. Because I think there's some interesting one. At C Mackles says, how about Missoula ultra runner Seth Swanson? This weekend, Seth won the Bighorn 100. It's a 100-mile race. He beat second place by 2 hours 40 minutes. He's 39 years old. Pretty good. Pretty good. That's athletic there, no doubt about it. At Nick Lawyer has, how about Sam Werner? He played soccer from Bozeman at Stanford and is now in the USL professional.
But he was in the MLS,
soccer.
right? I think he played for the Sounders.
And the USL is like sort of the next, it's the other professional league underneath, and I think associated with it's sort of like the D League or the G League now in the NBA. But I do think there's a lot of guys transferring, but certainly an outstanding one in his own right. And then FCS Nation Radio 1, Megan Fisher. Megan Fisher's been on this show, was a freshman tennis player at the University of Montana in a terrible car accident, lost her lower, I believe, left leg in that, and is a Paralympian gold medalist in cycling, of all things. And so I think, great consideration there for her. Great, a sad, a tragic story, but a great story that she has made it into. Great person to talk to. So another good one to have on the list.
A couple others, if we're talking about maybe the non-mainstream sports, you have to mention TJ Van Gardner and Levi Leipheimer. They're both amongst the best cyclists in the world. TJ Van Gardner is one of the top 10 cyclists in the world. He will be a threat at the Tour de France. He has been for years. He's from Bozeman, and Leipheimer's from Butte. So both those guys, I mean, if you're competing in the Tour de France, it's hard to say you're not. I mean, you're competing on a world stage. That's Olympic-level competition. The other one of my – when you're working in newspapers like I did for 7 years, in the summer, a lot of times you're chasing stories. You're trying to find features to write. But when I was working in Bozeman, there's so many of these ultra endurance athletes, and there's so many of these crazy like endurance runs. There's this run called the Ridge Run, where you run from the base of Bridger Bowl up to the top of the ridge, and you run all the way across the ridge, basically 20 miles, and then run down. There's some people that decide that it's a good idea. They're going to do a marathon before the Ridge Run. So they run 26 miles along the side of the mountain and then run up the mountain and run 20 more miles on top, and end up running about 50 total miles. Interviewing these people at the end of this is one of the great experiences of my life, because these people are having true out-of-body experiences. They're so exhausted and so high on the endorphins in their brains. It's amazing. The quotes you get are second to none. But one female you have to acknowledge, no doubt, is Nikki Kimball. Nikki Kimball is perhaps the greatest ultra-distance runner in the world. As a female, she has won the Western States 100-miler 4 times. She's run the 50-mile trail national championship 4 times. She's been named the runner of the year by Ultramarathon magazine 4 times. They do this competition in the winter. Have you've been to Bridger Bowl?
No.
So Bridger Bowl, the top lift will take you to about, I'd say, 900 vertical feet shy of the actual top of the ridge.
Okay.
But you can walk. You can hike the last about 1,000 feet, and you ski what is called the ridge. And you better either have a map or a tour guide, else you're going to get stuck on top of a 100-foot cliff like I did one day, and I had to throw my skis off the edge and climb down backwards because I wasn't about to drop it, and there's no going back up. But regardless, it's one of the mystical allures of the Bridger Bowl experience is the hiking the ridge. They do a competition up there called the King and Queen of the Ridge, and they see how many times you can hike the ridge and ski down. Most people that compete can do it 8 to 10 times. The elite people can do it 20 times. The last time I covered this thing, Nikki Kimball did it 45 times in one day.
Seems like a lot.
Not possible. Sprinting to the top of the mountain, skiing as hard as you possibly can, 1,000 vertical feet, and doing it again over and over and over and over again. Unbelievable.
Lapping the ridge.
Worth mentioning. That's where the Montana spirit comes in, right? Is you can train for these events at a much higher level than almost anywhere on the planet, and the Montana toughness plays in as well. So I think that when you really are hashing this thing out, a lot of times it is these sort of outside the box extreme sports where maybe actually the best athletes fit in.
In all the ones that you said, I don't know. You may have mentioned him, but I don't know if you did. Did you say Troy Anderson?
Well, so I was going to get to the contemporary guys. As far as the guys that are getting all the headlines in Montana natives that play for the Bobcats or the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good players, but in terms of the guys that are the best pure athletes, it's Troy Anderson and then everybody else. But I do think there's some good candidates as well. I mean, Gabe Solser is a tremendous athlete. There's no doubt about it. And Robbie Houck is a Montana native. For Braden Conkle, I mean, he has put up some testing numbers as well as produced on the field that is going to garner him some NFL attention, and that will thrust his stock up in this argument for sure. And Garrett Graves is a guy you mentioned. He hasn't really proved himself with the Grizz yet. I anticipate that he will, but he was a guy that was multiple-time state champion in football, multiple-time state champion in wrestling, just an all-around really well-rounded athlete. But when you're talking about pure athleticism, Troy Anderson is like almost no one I've ever covered, not only because of just the pure production, but also just because of the unorthodox way that he does it, the out-of-the-box way that Montana State uses him, the fact that he's just like this aw-shucks kid from a farm in the middle of nowhere outside of Dillon, Montana. Like, Troy Anderson truly has no idea that he is the alpha of the entire league. He doesn't know. And I think that's what makes him so appealing to his coaches and his teammates too. And the fact that we watch Troy Anderson run, it's like no one else. It's not as if he's the fastest guy in the world, although he is incredibly fast. But he kind of tucks his ear into his shoulder, and he's kind of running like Forrest Gump, and he doesn't ever run away from anybody. He straight runs at you. He hawks you down in the open field so he can crush you. And like his leg drive, when guys try to go low on him and he does that flying knee to the face, basically. I mean, I've never really seen anything like it. I thought he killed the cornerback from Cal Poly last year when he ran one of those quarterback sweeps and just gave him the flying knee to the ear hole. Jeff Choate had a quote the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. He said that he worries about Troy to a certain extent because of just the myth that is Troy Anderson. Troy Anderson, he's like Paul Bunyan of the Cat-Grizz rivalry right now. It's almost as if, what can Troy Anderson do?
Totally.
If this was 50 years ago, imagine the legends that would surround this kid. It would be like the book The Natural, You'd have all sorts of folklore attached to him. He's on live TV and live Twitter and live social media all over the place, and he still has that old school aura like no one else in the state of Montana right now, I think.
I mean, I agree with you. He did some things last year that just didn't even seem possible to be done. And it's weird to watch because it's irreplicable. It's not just irreplicable, it's completely singular. It's not before or presently. By seeing something like that, and that's not to say you can find guys that are faster, maybe some guys that are stronger, although Troy Anderson's lower body strength is pretty next level.
Especially considering how natural it comes to him.
Right.
It's not as if, I'm sure he works out plenty hard, and I'm sure he throws up great numbers on the squat and stuff like that. But, he walked onto campus day one, like ready to roll.
Yeah. But he also has a next gear that's not even like a burst. It's just a straight video game. Like, you grabbed the turbo in Mario Kart, and you hit the mushroom, and poof. And it's so weird. Like, I don't even know how it happens, but he's at top speed, and then you find out, well, he wasn't at top speed. And it just is a thrust into another place, and it's insane. One
of my favorite pastimes this past year was sitting in the press box with reporters that had never seen Troy Anderson play, or Jason Bocci, who shoots photos for me at Skyline Sports. He's a guy that
from West Virginia.
He played college football, and he's very interested in football, and he shot a lot of Grizz and Cat games for me. But he's still kind of new into the Big Sky. He's only covered it for about 3 years, and I remember telling him before the first time he came to Bozeman to shoot a game when the Grizz were on the road. I remember telling him, I said, hey, when you see the waters part, so to speak, in front of Troy Anderson, get your lens ready, because he's gone. Mm-hmm. There's no, he might hit it. He's gone. Mm-hmm. And I remember in the Incarnate Word playoff game, there was a reporter from the San Antonio News Express, and he said, well, this quarterback, he said he's just kind of a bull. He just kind of runs guys over. I said, well, yeah, he does run guys over, but he runs straight past them. He said, really? Is he that fast? Well, I said, well, he ran 10.900 in high school, but this reporter's from Texas, so 10.900 is just like, middle of the road. Mm-hmm. But Troy Anderson scored that touchdown in the second quarter, 77-yarder. I think he scored 13 touchdowns and more than 70 yards last year, playing Wildcat quarterback, which is an insane stat all on its own. But Kreese gone. And this reporter was just speechless. He said, does he do that all the time? I said, absolutely. That's his 13th one of those this year. It's unbelievable to watch the kid. And, I think that the fact that he will have such an unorthodox career path, too, is going to add to his legend, because when this thing is all said and done, I think we're going to be able to look at Troy Anderson's career and say he was one of the most transcendent and talented players that has ever played for Montana State. And I know that there's going to be an element of it where he's still going to leave us wanting more because of just the vast array of the way he's just going to be used. It's going to be spectacular, as well as because he's likely never going to be able to play a full-time position, there's always going to be that thought of what could have been. Mm-hmm. But what is so crazy right now anyways.
Yeah. Well, my hope is that, first of all, that he's healthy. Because he got banged up, and that's shortened it in terms of what he endured last year, ankles, knees, all that kind of stuff. And particularly, obviously, you want no one to get injured. It's a sport where injuries are a reality, and so that's the thing. But also, he's a guy who could play 90 plays a game, and you would be thrilled to have him on the field for it. And I think that Jeff Choate and that staff have a real responsibility to the person to take care of him in that way, because you want your horses to run in one sense, but also, there's not a lot of guys, in fact, none, that can do what he does and would be potentially the best player on the field on every single play. And so I think that there's a responsibility there for the individual, that you are not enduring contact 1,000 times in a season, or 500 times in a season, for that matter. I think that has to be parsed out, and I don't know how you do it. I really don't. I think that's it's a very easy thing to say, and especially when you put like some sort of ethical weight on it or whatever.
Sure.
It's a very hard thing to do for a coach to try and figure out the best times and ways to use a guy like that. But I do think that you need to do that. And I also, I'm with you, because if Troy Anderson was just, quote unquote, just a full-time linebacker all the time, he'd put up numbers like we have never seen before. And also, that
maybe not never seen. The guy that we're number 33 on Montana put up pretty eye-popping numbers a year ago, Dante Olson.
Before.
Yeah.
But I guess the point is like, that's one way to the league, right? When all of a sudden you are a consensus All-American multiple years in a row, and, a Buck Buchanan guy and all that. When you're a jack of all trades, that's not that appealing to the NFL, especially coming from the FCS level, because nobody assumes anybody coming from this level, even if it were true, is capable of doing what he's done here in the NFL. Totally. And so you got, what is the thing that you're going to bring to us that you can do? And you gotta be able to show that. Now, they're scouts, they got eyeballs, they can see what's going on, combine, the whole thing. But
I wondered, what will Troy Anderson look like against North Dakota State? And I thought Montana State looked utterly overmatched at Fargo last year. Utterly overmatched. They could do nothing. And Montana State was great in a lot of different ways last year. And, their defensive line was elite a year ago, and they got manhandled in Fargo. Their defense straight up couldn't tackle anybody. Their offense couldn't do anything except what? Except who?
Troy Anderson.
Troy Anderson. 55-yard touchdown, 129 yards rushing. The last two guys that we have to acknowledge, I don't necessarily think they're at the top of this list, but they're definitely worth mentioning. Raekwon Evans from Billings, who's played at North Idaho College the last 2 years and now is headed to Florida State on a basketball scholarship.
Yep.
He's got to be the best basketball guy from Montana right now, with the exception of Josh Huses and Trace Tinkle. Florida State's no joke. That's a big-time deal for him. And then the other guy is Will Dissly, scoring touchdowns in the NFL.
Yeah, good point.
He suffered a brutal injury a year ago, but you got to mention him in the mix as well. When he was healthy, he was the starting tight end for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, and it is time for a Wing It Wednesday. Give us a call, 329-1899, 329-1899, the phone number. We will give you some trivia questions, and you have a chance to get yourself elbow deep in wing sauce. 329-1899, Desperado Sports Tavern trivia next.
For 20 years, the Missoula Osprey have brought Missoula a fan-friendly experience in one of the most beautiful summer settings in America, and the baseball has been top-notch as well. ESPN Missoula is happy to be the exclusive radio carrier of the Missoula Osprey once again this summer. Tune in to 102.9 FM to hear every single Osprey game as the Birds chase another Pioneer League title. The Missoula Osprey broadcasts are brought to you in part by Widmer Brothers Brewing, Diversified Construction and Materials, Mission Paint, and Selway Armory.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
It's getting hot out there, but Town Pump's got you covered, because right now Pepsi and Coke 12 packs are only $4.99. Need something stronger? Phillipsburg Brewing 4 packs are $8.49. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up. Oh yeah.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Nothing says Florence coffee like a real huckleberry smoothie. Our real huckleberry smoothies are made with real huckleberries that grow high up on the mountainsides of Montana. Drive to any of our Flowco locations throughout western Montana and try a delicious real huckleberry smoothie. And visit us at FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky. Florence Coffee Company.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. For the second straight night, Idaho Falls beat the Missoula Osprey after they got an early lead. Idaho Falls winning 6-4 last night. They have now won 2 of the first 2 games. The final game of the series is this evening at 7 o'clock on ESPN Radio. An update as well for you. Tom Wilms, the voice of the Osprey, fell ill today, will not be available for the broadcast. He's being attended to in a local hospital down there in Idaho. So we will have the broadcast for you from 9:80 a.m. in Idaho, a simulcast for the Osprey and Idaho Falls games, and we will update Tom Wilms' status as we have more information.
Final game of the road trip for the O's, their home opener Friday. Best of health, best wishes to Tom Wilms. Missoula Mavericks took care of business on the road against Helena Senators with a sweep on Tuesday. Mavs won the first contest 8-1 and registered a 5-4 victory in the second game. Dane Frazier went 3 for 5 in the opener, including 2 runs scored, and he added 2 more hits, driving in 2 more for Missoula in the nightcap.
Idaho has named Zach Kloss as the interim head coach for its men's basketball team after Don Verlin was terminated last week. Kloss has been an assistant at the University of Idaho since 2015 after spending 10 years at Nevada. Finally, tomorrow night, the NBA draft. The first pick of the draft is had by the New Orleans Pelicans, followed by Memphis and the New York Knicks.
They always say congratulations. Work so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hate and say we changing, look, we made it. Yeah, we made it. They was never friendly.
Time for a Wing It Wednesday. Give us a call, 329-1899. 329-1899, area code 406. 329-1899. All guests join us via the Range Brothers RV phone line. We got a Wing It Wednesday for you right now. Wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Colt has got the trivia questions ready to go. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. At Gus Tutel, at 1029 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT on Twitter. Again, our certainly absolute best to Tom Wilms, who fell ill today. We don't know what it was, but he was taken to a hospital and will not be available for the call on the Osprey game tonight, consequently. And, again, we will certainly update his status as we know it to all of you. We will be simulcasting the home call of the Osprey Idaho Falls game tonight. Idaho Falls 5-0 now in their first 5 games of the season, so great way for the Chuckers to start, and Missoula looking to salvage a win this evening down there. So we will have that game for you. A little different deal tonight, with Tom and his health. So we wish him the best. We go now to the phones. We welcome in Josh to the show. Josh, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well, Josh. Thanks very much. Where are you at today? You cruising around?
No, just headed home from work.
Okay. That seems like a good thing. Have you had wings at the Desperado before, Josh?
I have. Yeah.
What's your?
They're good.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
Oh, I kind of like the barbecue.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. Yeah, barbecue or kind of a garlic maybe.
Oh, the garlic parmesan is an outstanding way to go, no doubt about it. All right. Well, here we go. We got 3 questions for you.
And a beer, of course. Gotta have a beer.
I mean, are we at the Desperado Sports Tavern, for crying out loud, Josh? Yeah. You may have a cold one. You may have some suds while you're in there. That is a given. That is a given. Well, we'll try to get you down there for some wings. You got 3 questions for you. Coulter will ask them. If you get all 3, you got yourself the wings and a shirt. If you only get 2, we'll still give you the wings. If you need any help, I'm your lifeline, okay?
Sounds good.
Boy, some chicken wings that really hit the spot. Tell me likey. Tell me what wingy.
All right, Josh, here we go. Question number 1. Josh from his space shuttle here calling in. Coulter, here we go. Question number 1 for Josh.
All right, Josh, are you a big NBA guy?
Yeah, kind of know some about it, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll do a little these.
Wait. Were you at a train crossing? Did a train just go by?
Is it loud?
Is that what we're hearing here? Are your windows down?
No, is it loud?
I
don't know.
It's definitely noticeable. Sounds like the train is basically gone though.
Yeah. Does that seem to help at all?
There we go.
Wow, look at this. Look at this. Just trying to find good audio.
Must have my Bluetooth in my car. Must be not real good, huh?
I mean, that is better. That's a better scenario. I mean, count the cars while you go. Let's make this really hard. This will be fun.
Well, I want to keep up the high standards of the show. I hate to drag you guys down.
That's what we
Amen,
expect
brother.
out of here. Quality at every turn. Okay, here we go.
All right,
Question number 1.
Josh. Number 1, the NBA Finals MVP award which is named after Bill Russell. Bill Russell, NBA Finals MVP, was created in 1969, so 50 years ago. Out of the last 50 NBA Finals, have more or less than 30 individual players claimed those 50 NBA Finals MVP awards?
Good question.
Oh, it's got to be less.
Over or under how many? 30?
Over or under 30?
Oh, I gotta say under.
You didn't ask me my opinion, but had you asked me, I would have said under too.
Man, that's a tough question. It is over by 1. 31 players have won the 50 NBA Finals MVPs.
Seems crazy.
That surprises me. I figured Jordan alone, and between Jordan and maybe Kobe, and I don't know. That's surprising.
Jordan won.
What about Bill Russell? Bill Russell won 11. How many did he have? He had to have had 10.
Yeah, that's the thing. They didn't institute the award until 1969, so Bill Russell actually won none because he was retired by that point.
See, Coulter, that's just dirty pool, Coulter.
We want you to get these right, to be completely honest. So that was close, and that was a hard question. I'm sorry. But you guys are right. I mean, Michael Jordan won 6 of them. Shaquille O'Neal won 3 of them. LeBron James has won 3. Kawhi Leonard 2. Kevin Durant 2. Tim Duncan won 3. Magic Johnson has won 3. Larry Bird has won 3. Willis Reed won a couple. So there's been a lot of repeat winners, no doubt. Okay, so you ready for an even harder question now? This is even more dirty pool.
Sure.
1969. The Los Angeles Lakers lost the NBA Finals to the Boston Celtics, but this player won the inaugural NBA Finals Bill Russell MVP award, the only player in the 50-year history of the award to win the award while playing for the losing team. Name that Los Angeles Lakers guard from the 1969 LA Lakers.
Well, I gotta think about the era. First of all, it's got to be. I mean, my initial thought would be Jerry West. I gotta wonder. I think that's before Kareem.
Indeed, before Kareem. Yep.
Chamberlain. I'm gonna go with Jerry West.
Look at
he's
you.
the logo.
He rallies.
There
he
you
rallies.
go.
Jerry
Got it.
West. Jerry West, the only player to win the NBA Finals MVP award on the losing team. Jerry West has one of the craziest resumes in the history of the NBA. Jerry West won the NBA MVP just once. He finished runner-up 10 times.
It's like Phil Mickelson at the U.S. Open, except for the win.
Yeah.
All right. So you got one down or 2 down, 1 to go. This question probably seems harder than it is. Trust your gut on it, because I guarantee you the first person that comes to mind is the answer. Although this is hard. Who is the all-time leading scorer in the history of the WNBA?
Oh,
and you do have a lifeline.
I want to say, right off the bat, I want to say Diana Taurasi. But, let's see. Well, I might as well go. I'll go with my lifeline as well. Talk through this one. I want to say Taurasi.
I'm going to give you 4 words as your lifeline, okay? Don't overthink it.
Okay.
Taurasi. Do it. Yes, Taurasi. It has to be.
It is Diana Taurasi.
It can't be Cheryl Swoops, for crying out loud, out here.
It is Diana Taurasi by a good 1,100, close to 1,200 points.
There you go.
Diana Taurasi, certainly the all-time leading scorer in the history of the WNBA, and in my humble opinion, the greatest women's basketball player of all time.
Yeah, she was awesome with Connecticut.
Yeah. Josh, very well done. Give your information to Reese there at the back, and we will get you set up with some wings to the Desperado, all right? Beer's on you.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
You can join me for one.
Done. Call us up. We'll leave the studio. We're on our way.
Sounds good. Meet you there in 10.
You got it. If the train's out of the way, we'll meet you there in 10. All right, Josh.
All right,
very well done. Thank you. There you go.
Thanks.
Just that easy. Hey, Coulter.
Hey, guess.
The Wyndham
Wingate
Hotel chain has a individual hotel called the Wingate in Missoula. It does a lot of great things for business travelers, for locals, for obviously people from out of town. Great swimming pool and slide, a full breakfast, not a continental breakfast, full breakfast, great areas for conventions, banquets, etc. Tell them about it.
And if you need a place to host a meeting, whether you're from in town or from out of town, you got guys coming in from out of town for a meeting, Wingate by Wyndham, great place to host any sort of business event. And you might have noticed during the summer, especially when you're talking about the beautiful state of Montana, a lot of times hotel rates go up, but not if you are a corporate member at the Wingate by Wyndham. If you're not, when you choose to stay at the Wingate by Wyndham, many hotels raise their corporate rates during the summer, but Wingate by Wyndham is committed to keeping their rates the same year-round for qualified customers. If you're a business traveler who's tired of summer rate increases, Wingate by Wyndham can help you all summer long and all year long. The Wingate offers great year-round rates for corporate travelers with the bonus of extra Wyndham Rewards points wherever you stay, whether it's in Missoula or otherwise, and they upgrade regular business guests for no charge whenever possible. Give Kim and Alicia a call, 406-541-8000. That's 541-8000 today to learn more. Let the Wingate by Wyndham in Missoula make you feel at home even when you're not.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
In western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter Brooklyn was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula. 1029ESPN.com, Facebook/ESPN Missoula. And for the best Big Sky coverage in the state of Montana, go to SkylineSportsMT.com. Now for the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Missed anything in the show, you can check it out on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app and iTunes. And also look it up on our website, 1029ESPN.com. Really, anywhere you get podcasts, you can get Tutel Nuanez on the podcast. And so do it. Would you? It'd be great. Great place to listen. You can get us whenever and wherever you want us. Podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. You may have been listening to this show. It's a broad statement, given the fact that if you are listening, it's a fact. And heard us mention, that we got a Reese. You got to give Reese your name and stuff when you call in and you win wings to the Desperado, or maybe you win tickets to something and all that kind of thing. But Tommy, our esteemed producer, is the engineer of these stations. He's also over on the trail, working very hard at 103.3, doing afternoon and evening duties on the trail over there as the DJ. He was in this studio, about 45 minutes ago, just having his normal afternoon meltdown, screaming rants, and so forth and so on. And so Tommy is here with us every day, and he's still going to be with us in and on this show. But also, we are very happy to have Reese sitting back there doing some more of the phones, patching people through, taking care of us, making sure we're on the air, making sure everything is sounding good, and doing some production with us. So, fear not, Tommy has not gone, but Reese has come, and we are very happy to have him back there. He's doing an excellent job here, getting his feet underneath him his first couple of weeks, sitting back there with us. So we're pumped to have Reese sitting back there doing the thing. You know what I mean?
Loving it.
You're always screaming about millennials. Reese seems like a very, able and hardworking kid.
Totally. Millennials are determined in my eyes via the age of your soul. That's why I consider neither one of us millennials, nor do I consider Reese a millennial.
Well,
Reese has a very old soul. You can tell.
I'm actually old relative to
you are. What are you, a Gen Xer?
Gen X, bro. What does that mean? What do I like? Grand Theft Auto?
Grand Theft Auto.
By the way, if you ever played Grand Theft Auto, it is exactly the same, minus the carjackings, as driving in the Philippines. I was born to drive in the Philippines. Pass on the right, no problem. Double stripe, no problem. Blind corner, no problem. Flash your lights, honk your horn. Baby, I'm going.
Reese informs me that he's technically Gen Z.
Gen Z.
It's new. New one on me. Hey, I like Gen Zers. I only know one of them. Go Reese.
We'll see you tomorrow. ESPN SWX Montana.
Good news. Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass. 3217 Brooks or 549-0608.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River. Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates. 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris, online at kurtzpolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula.